Today I want to talk about 3 things that I personally do that makes property investing more profitable. Now these 3 things might not be immediately obvious, and they're often a case of just not knowing what you don't know. So I look forward to sharing these tips, but just want to clarify that I'm not a financial advisor, not an insurance broker. Speak to the professionals about these tips, especially if there's something that intrigues you or gets you thinking. So make sure you speak to the right people to get clarification around these, but hopefully they give you a good idea and get you thinking about certain aspects. My first big tip comes around insurance. Now this is something I personally do on my properties, and it makes a huge difference. When it comes to insurance, essentially there's 3 key components. The main components being the premiums you pay, so that's how much you pay each month or each year for the insurance policy itself. The excess, so how much basically excess do you pay? So say there's an insurance claim of $10,000. If you've got $1,000 excess, essentially the insurance company will pay you out $9,000. So that's your excess, and then obviously the full insurable amount. Now my tip here really comes at playing with your excesses. Personally, whenever you go into and do a quote online or ring up an insurance company, normally they set the excesses at either $500 or $1,000. What I've found is if you increase those excesses up to a margin that you're comfortable, personally I set mine at $5,000, it makes a huge difference in the premiums and can actually halve the premiums of what you're paying each year. So if you've got 2 or 3 properties, you might be able to save $3,000 or $4,000 a year, which then offsets if something does happen, having those higher excesses in place. Obviously you've got to be comfortable with that. Say you've got a $5,000 excess, your kitchen gets flooded and they do a $15,000 payout for a new kitchen. You'll only get $10,000 of that if you've got a $5,000 excess. If something happens and it's under the value of $5,000, you're not going to see a cent. So it really comes back to what you're comfortable with, but you will save an absolute fortune on premiums if you play with those excesses and set them as high as you are comfortable with. So that's my first big tip, and that applies to both owner-occupied properties and investment properties. Have a play around with your excesses and see just how much that could save you on your annual premiums. Obviously not an insurance broker, so speak to those insurance providers and make sure it's something you're comfortable with, but it's certainly a way to get ahead and make more money from your properties. The second big thing when it comes to investment properties is understanding the taxation laws around them. A big thing when it comes to investment properties and repairs and maintenance is understanding the difference between what's classed as repairs and maintenance versus an upgrade or a new addition to the property. Essentially, repairs and maintenance are deductible that financial year and can be written off in full, where anything that's an upgrade or considered a new addition to the property will essentially have to be depreciated over a certain lifespan and actually adds to the cost base of that property. So if you're depreciating it and then you go to sell it, that what you've claimed as depreciation will come off the price. So it's really important to understand them when you're organising trades, to really clarify if they're doing repairs and maintenance, and if so, marking that on the invoices, or if they're actually doing upgrades. Once again, speak to your accountant in that regard. There is some huge savings there to be made if you're really clear around what is repairs and maintenance on a property. My third big tip comes around rental adjustments. Each time your lease is up for renewal, you really should be checking on the market and seeing what the current market price is for your property. I meet a lot of people and they're like, we've got really good tenants in place, we want to look after them, we want to do the right thing by them, so we're not increasing the rent. And personally, I think this is a huge mistake. Firstly, I find that the tenants don't actually appreciate it or actually acknowledge that you're gifting them $3,000 or $4,000 a year. And often it leaves the landlord short, so they don't have the money for repairs and maintenance and so on and so forth. If you want to look after your tenant and do the right thing by the tenant, maintain your property or consider doing some upgrades to your property. Essentially, it will add value to the property and give the tenants a really comfortable home to live in. So that's really a big consideration there. Make sure your rents are tracking the market. And if you do want to do the right thing by your tenant, which you absolutely should be, make sure you're on top of the maintenance and, if anything, improving the property as they continue to live in the home. So there you have it. That's 3 quick tips on making sure that your rental properties as profitable as possible, and a couple of things I do myself personally. I hope that is of help, and as always, if you do have any questions, absolutely give me a call.